o'clock on a Thursday night. And yeah, baby. So we are live. So 8 o'clock on a Thursday night. Hey, what's going on? My name is Jim Schultz here with F Cubed, and this is the weekly shred. So, man, we've been going strong now for like 5-6 weeks in a row, and I'm super pumped about that, man. I am super pumped about that, and I have a really, really good one for you guys tonight because we got to get ready, man. We talked about this last week, right? But training after lockdown, it's actually going to happen, right? It looks like we're actually going to be in the gym sometime in the next 6 months. So let's get ready for that day, and let's kind of talk about what that might look like on the other side. So tonight, what I want to talk about, man, we're going to hit the whole hard tonight. Let's talk about short or long rest periods. Is it better to train with short rest periods or long rest periods? Man, if you guys follow my content, right, if you've been following me for a while, you probably know where I'm going to go with this. You probably know the direction that we're going to take with this discussion. But still, stick with me for the next 20 minutes because I think that we're going to learn some things together that maybe we didn't know beforehand. I know when I was preparing for tonight's discussion and I was looking over, the evidence and kind of thinking about my own thoughts and trying to kind of marry the two, I was like, wow, this is pretty interesting, kind of these new revelations that I've recently made. So I really hope that this is helpful for you guys. So let's do it, man. So actually, first, what I want to know is if you're watching this live right now, or even if you watch it on the replay, I guess it would still work. Let me know in the comments below, wherever you're watching, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Are you a short rest period guy or girl, or are you a long rest period guy or girl? I just need one word from you, short or long. And let's say short is like 60 to 90 seconds or less. Long is like 2 to 3 minutes or more. Those are kind of the loose parameters that we're going to use tonight. So let me know, what do you prefer to do? How do you prefer to train? Because I really feel like, this is kind of, the age-old question, man. Like this is right up there with like HIIT and LISS, right? This is right up there with like pancakes and waffles, man. Like it's like, where do you go, right? Like it's kind of a heated debate. Should we only rest a minute or should we rest like 4 minutes between sets, right? Like which way should we go? And oh, by the way, obviously pancakes are better than waffles because waffles just take way too much time to get together. So that debate can be settled right here, right now. But still, nevertheless, right? Short rest periods, long rest periods. Let's say the short rest periods are like 60 to 90 seconds or less. And then let's say that the long rest guys are 2 to 3 minutes or more. I think that's a pretty good line in the sand, right? Like I think classifying short rest periods and long rest periods as such is a pretty good demarcation of the two camps, of the two kind of schools of thought. Okay, so let's dig. Oh, unless y'all want to dig into my hairstyle. Let's dig. There's a lot to dig out there. So let's dig into this, right? But before we do, I want to make sure that we all understand something. I want to make sure that we are all on the same page. Your goal in the gym, our goal in the gym, is to build muscle. It is not to burn calories. It doesn't matter if you are in a shred season of your own. Hey, shout out to all my full throttlers right now that started the shred season on Monday. It's going really well. Having a lot of fun with that guy. It's been really cool. But whether or not you are in a shred season, whether or not you are in a maintenance phase, whether or not you're in, obviously a growth phase, this makes a lot of sense. It doesn't matter what season you might be in. It doesn't matter what your ultimate physique goals might be, assuming they are physique related, right? Again, if it's sport specific or, endurance training, like that kind of stuff, that's very, very different. That's its own animal. I'm talking about people that are trying to radically transform their physiques, or people that have already radically transformed their physiques and they're trying to polish and refine, right? Where our goal, our number one objective is kind of aesthetics. Our number one objective is our physiques, right? And obviously performance and health comes along with that, but number one, we're really focused on our physiques. We're physique athletes, right? Whether it be, officially a competitor or unofficially, just competing on the streets against your boys, against your girls, or even in your own mind, right? You're still an athlete in my books if you take this stuff seriously. If you're in the gym, you are there to build muscle. You are there to maintain muscle. You are not there to burn calories, right? All that lightweight, high rep. I mean, it's not 1998 anymore, right? Like, we're better than this. It's 2020. And we've all been locked in our homes for 8 weeks, so we've been able to consume massive quantities of information. So we should understand this really, really well right now. Yes, you are going to burn some calories while you're in the gym, of course. You're going to be doing some activity, right? But the main objective is to either build muscle, or if you are in that caloric deficit, to kind of stave off any muscle loss, to kind of, stave off any catabolism that might take hold of your physique. So let's make sure that we all understand that before we dig in here. But let's dig in. I'm going to assume that you guys understand that. If you guys don't understand that, then toss me some dissenting voices in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. All right, so short rest periods. Here's what we're looking at. So with a short rest period, again, 60, 90 seconds or less, right? You're going to build up fatigue more quickly, right? Put another way, it's going to feel like you are working really hard. And that kind of makes sense because you probably will be working really hard, right? Like if you're moving really fast through a training session and you are not resting very long between sets, then, you're going to accumulate fatigue very quickly. Like within 10, 15, 20 minutes, you're going to have a sweat worked up. You might be out of breath, right? You might be doing like supersets and giant sets and that kind of stuff. You are going to feel like, man, I'm really working my tail off. That's not necessarily a bad thing. That's almost never a bad thing, feeling like you're working really hard. But I do want us to, be a little cautious here. Just because you are working up a sweat, out of breath, working really hard, doesn't mean that you're using your time the most efficiently, right? Now, you can maybe glean from what I just said the direction that I'm going to take with tonight's talk. But stay tuned, though. I might throw a little surprise at you guys at the very end. But as you're building up more fatigue, right, you're not going to be fully recovered for your subsequent sets. Now, what does that mean and why is that important? Well, it's pretty obvious, right? And anyone who's trained in any capacity knows this is true. If I'm resting 45 seconds between sets, right, it almost doesn't matter what exercise I'm doing. I could be doing bench press, I could be doing squats, I could be doing cable kickbacks. It doesn't really matter. That short rest interval is so short. It's so small. The time, between the time elapsed from one set to the next is just so little that you're not going to be fully recovered. You're not even going to be close to fully recovered. So what's going to happen? Your performance is going to drop off on subsequent sets. Now that in and of itself may not be a bad thing, right? And of course what I mean is, let's say you're bench pressing 135 for sets of 10, right? You do 135 for a set of 10 on your first set, you rest 45 seconds. The next set you may only be able to get 7 or 8. The next set you may be only able to get 5 or 6, right? And so you can kind of see this cascading effect from one set to the next, right? I mean, it just makes perfect sense. And for those of you that, maybe haven't experienced that, then you're probably not moving quickly enough. Anyone who's moved quickly enough, will see, a degradation in performance. Or it's possible that you're not getting close enough to failure. Like if you do a set of 10 and it's super easy, then you might be able to cruise through subsequent sets of 10. But assuming that your RPE is, 6 or higher, you're getting within a few reps of failure, then you're probably going to realize this drop-off in performance. Again, not necessarily a bad thing, but we want to be aware of this, right? We want to be cognizant of this. All right. Well, one of the big benefits, though, to short rest periods is you're going to be able to complete more sets, right? Given the same amount of time. I mean, you can just, it's really just simple math, right? I mean, think about it. If I'm resting 60 seconds between sets, and let's say the set I'm doing, whatever exercise it is, it doesn't matter. Let's say it takes me 30 seconds to do that set, right? So I can do one full set, including rest periods in 90 seconds, right? So in what? 10 minutes, 9 minutes, right? A minute and a half, 3 minutes. Yeah, 9 minutes, I'm going to be able to do 6 rounds, 6 sets with rest, right? Now, what if I was resting like 2.5 minutes, between sets? Now every round takes me 3 minutes, right? 2.5 minutes of rest, 30 seconds of work. So you can see a huge difference, right? It's like, wow, man, in the one scenario, I'm doing 6 sets. That has to be giving me more progress, right? That has to be giving me more gains, right? With an S or a Z, it doesn't even matter. The other side, right, I'm only doing 3 sets. It's like, wow, that's a huge drop off, right? So one of the big benefits to being able to, one of the big benefits to short rest periods is being able to move more quickly. So let's make sure that we're aware of that. Okay. What about long rest periods? Well, naturally, it's pretty much the antonym to the previous slide, right? Your fatigue is going to be accumulated more slowly. You're going to have better intra-set recovery. You're going to have higher performance. I mean, I don't really think I need to belabor this anymore, but I'll still find 3 minutes of commentary easily. If I'm resting 3 minutes between sets, right? 4 minutes between sets, even 2.5 minutes between sets, right? Something 2-3 minutes or longer, you're going to feel really good when it comes time for the next set, right? And by good, I don't necessarily mean better. I just mean that you're going to be recovered, right? You're not going to be gassed from the previous set, right? Even if it's like a super, super hard set of squats, right? And I'm talking like RPE of 10, like just all out, right? After about 3 minutes, you're going to start feeling a lot better, right? Now, an all-out set of squats, it may take you more like 5-6 minutes to get fully recovered. But after those first 2-3 minutes, you're going to start feeling really good. And so what's going to happen? Going back to our previous example, you know, I'm doing 135 for sets of 10, and 10 is near failure for me, RPE of 7 or 8 or whatever. If you're resting 3 minutes between sets, there's a really good chance that your performance is going to stay around that level. It may drop off a little bit on your final sets, like sets 4 and 5, but you're still going to be able to maintain that performance across the sets for that exercise because you have much better, inter-set recovery. I think I put intra-set recovery. That's definitely not correct. I mixed up my intras and my inters, right? I meant inter-set recovery. Intra would be within the set. Like, no, that's not what we're talking about. Inter-set recovery is what we're talking about. You have higher performance. But obviously, your sessions are going to be longer, man. So, you're going to have fewer sets. You're going to have fewer sets completed. And so, that's a drawback, right? That's a pretty significant drawback here. Okay, so short rest periods and long rest periods. All right. So what does the evidence say? So when you're trying to figure out what's best, right? Like you guys might be able to kind of guess. If I'm trying to figure out what's best, what am I going to need to do? I'm going to need to control for as many variables as I possibly can, right? Like I want to control for some of the main drivers of progress. I want to control for some of the main drivers of hypertrophy. I want to control for some of the main drivers of just moving forward with my training, such as volume, such as effort, such as, number of sets, right? Also, obviously, mechanical tension or the load that you're using would be in there too, but you're never going to be able to control for that, with short rest periods and long rest periods, because you're just going to have to use a lot less weight on your sets with shorter rest periods, right? That just makes perfect sense. But we can control for these other things. The problem is, and I actually linked to the research down below, so if you guys are watching, well, it depends on where you're watching. If you're watching on Facebook, it's down in the description. If you're watching on YouTube, it's down in the description. If you're on Twitter, I've only got 140 characters to work with, so hop over to Facebook or YouTube. It's down in the description. But I linked to the few studies I was kind of reviewing in preparation for tonight's shred. And one of the things I found was, the researchers, they've done a really good job working with what they've got, right? Like they're trying to match as many variables as they can. But you can kind of see, pretty clearly and obviously it becomes a problem, because if I'm gonna match for effort, right, RPE, there's a really good chance that my volume is going to be quite different, right? Because again, you're going to tire more quickly with shorter rest intervals, but your RPE might be really high, like you might be really close to failure, but your volume, your total workload is going to be very different from a short rest period environment to a long rest period environment. Similarly, I can match for volume, right? But my number of sets are going to be very different, because the number of sets needed to get to the same level of volume with short rest periods is going to be much higher than long rest periods. So again, it's kind of like this four-dimensional puzzle where at least two of the pieces are contradictory, right? At least two of the pieces are sort of like mutually exclusive, so we can't put all these together, right? So when the researchers dug into this, it was difficult for them to figure out definitively, what might be the best rest period for us to use. Should it be short or should it be long? But what's really cool, and this is a fairly new revelation on my part that I've always known to be true. Like I've just known it, excuse me, I've just known it from my, experiential kind of anecdotal just work over the years. But looking at the research, and this might be the last research link I included in the description, I'm like, yeah, that just makes so much more sense. Longer sets, and I don't mean longer rest period sets, I mean longer duration sets, can cause more global fatigue before local effort or local fatigue is maximized. Now, what does that even mean? This is really, really important, right? So if you've been, distracted by Joe Exotic, or you've been, in the middle of Zumbo's Just Desserts, like pause it for the next 2 minutes and come back to me. This is going to really help you. So when I'm doing a longer set, right? Longer set in terms of reps, like 12, 15, 20, which is oftentimes the case when I'm moving more quickly because I'm using lighter weights. You can see the connection, right? When I do longer sets, there's a really good chance that the fatigue that my overall system starts to take on is going to rise so high before I actually, achieve the desired effect in the muscle that I'm focused on. So for example, if I'm doing like curls, let's say, I really want to focus the effort and I want to focus the tension locally on my biceps. When I'm doing curls, I'm not doing curls for system fatigue, right? I'm not doing curls to accumulate global fatigue. Like sometimes maybe you're doing this for like very specialized like conditioning work or whatever, but generally speaking, when you're in the gym training, I'm trying to localize the effort on my biceps. Well, if the sets get too high in terms of duration, then what I might find is my global fatigue, the lactic acid that builds up, the lactate that starts to accumulate, in my bloodstream, starts to become so great that I can't continue the set before my local effort is maximized. I can't continue the set. I stop the set before I actually get to a point where I've achieved, maximum tension, maximum, output, or the desired outcome on the muscle in question. And so this is kind of a big deal, right? This is kind of a really big deal. And so that kind of points to longer rest periods and some heavier weights. Because again, you don't want that, that global fatigue to build up. And here's actually a great example. Go do barbell squats when the gyms reopen, or go out into your garage if you happen to be blessed with a garage gym, which I wish I had one now. Go out to your garage, go out to the gym, do some barbell squats, and I want you to do them with 60-second rest between sets. And do sets of like 15. And I don't even care what's on the bar. You could use the bar for all I care. What's going to happen? Your global fatigue is going to start to become so great, so immense, that it's going to take you out of sets before your quads get fully taxed, before your glutes get fully taxed. Now, again, if you're a brand new trainer, maybe this isn't the case. If you're brand new to lifting, like maybe, you'll feel that local fatigue. I mean, you're going to feel some local fatigue, right? But we're talking about what is the best rest period, right? What should we be doing if we're trying to squeeze the most juice out of the training orange, as I like to say all the time, on From Theory to Practice over at Tasty Trade. That's what we're focused on. And so you really want to be aware of this global fatigue and this local fatigue. It's so interesting to me. So here are your action items tonight. So sufficient rest between sets will allow enough local fatigue. Again, you're rested enough, you're using heavy enough weights so that you're not in a situation where the global fatigue is becoming so high because your sets are so long that you're not able to localize the effort on the muscle in question. And so by focusing on sufficient rest between sets, you are more fully recovered. Now, what is sufficient rest between sets? Let's kind of set the record straight. When you're doing compound movements, like squats, like bench, like deadlifts, like rows, like stuff like that, I would try to rest 2 to 3 minutes between sets. Because if you don't, then what's going to happen is that global fatigue is going to set in before you can even localize the effort on the muscle in question. Like the example I gave you guys earlier with squats. If you're doing isolation work and you just want to cut down on your training time, which, let's be honest, we all kind of need to do that, to some degree. If you're doing, triceps press downs or curls or even like leg extensions or something like that, you can probably get away with shorter rest periods, right? I'm not a huge fan of anything under 60 seconds. I think that's a little bit too drastic. But if you want to do 60 seconds or 90 seconds or 75 seconds, right, you're probably going to still be able to achieve most of the localized fatigue that you're going for. You may not be able to maximize the effort in question, but remember, right, we're operating within constraints. We only have so much time to train. It's like, yeah, Jim, I would love to take 5 minutes between sets, every set, but I can't, right? I've got a wife, I've got a husband, I've got children, I've got a job, I've got all these other things that get in the way of squats. Like, I know, I've got them too. And so we got to work around this, right? So compound movements, longer rest periods, isolation movements, if you want to, shorter rest periods just to, cut into the training time. So what if you're at home? What if you're training at home though? Like, what do we do now? Well, obviously, we're really constrained by the loading parameters, right? Like, you really can't, there's only so much you can do with band presses. There's only so much you can do, with, band presses, right? There's only so much you can do with the bands and the pair of 10-pound dumbbells that you have. And so because of that, we actually oftentimes, at least I do, we have to cut down the rest between sets just to make the sessions more challenging. It becomes difficult to progressively overload, your system through load and through other techniques all the time when you're training at home, unless you have access to a lot of equipment. But if you're working with, minimal equipment, this is just something that we all have to deal with, right? And then lastly, let's not forget, tonight was kind of heavy, right? Tonight was, digging into the research, talking about global fatigue and local fatigue and all this other stuff. At the end of the day, let's all just follow the sage wisdom of the prophet Tin Cup, and let's just say, grip it and rip it, right? Let's not forget that there's something to be said for a scenario where you just say, you know what I'm going to do, Jim? I appreciate your time tonight, man. I watched it for about 75 seconds, and then I tuned it out. But I'm just going to get in there, I'm just going to train. I'm just going to get in there, and I'm just going to grip it and rip it. I might rest a long time between sets. I might rest a short time between sets. In fact, I'm not even going to track it. I'm just going to get in there, and I'm just going to do my thing. Hey, I've got no problem with that. I've got no problem with that whatsoever, especially if you are new to this game, or especially if, you've got some quarantine blues, floating around in your head these days, which, hey, I got to be real, I kind of do. Then it's like, hey, if I'm training at all, like, let's chalk that up as a W, right? But for those of us that are a little bit more seasoned, for those of us that are a little bit more experienced, for those of us that are looking for ways to improve, these are some things that I would keep in mind, right? Because one of the things that I love to say is you can't manage it if you don't measure it, right? If you don't measure it, you can't manage it. And the only way to get better, or to ensure that you get better, is probably a more accurate way to put it, is if you measure your inputs, if you collect data. If you don't know what's going on, how can you possibly improve? And so that's it, man. That's the weekly shred tonight. You guys are amazing. If you're still tuning in, man, at this point in the shred, you guys are absolutely amazing. If you guys have any questions about tonight, just drop it down in the comments below, right? Wherever you happen to be watching it, I will be sure to, scour the comment threads on all 3 platforms, on Twitter, on Facebook, and on YouTube. I'll be happy to help you out. You can reach out to me on social media. I'm pretty much just Jay Schultz F3 across the board. Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, pretty much all of them. TikTok, although my TikTok game is not very strong, and so you can look me up on there, but I think I've only got like 1 video, And yeah, it's not that awesome. But you can email me, jschultzf3@gmail. If you guys wanted to share this wherever you happen to be, that would really help me out a ton. And yeah, man, mosey on down into the description wherever you happen to be watching this. Or if you're on Twitter, just go up to my bio link and grab some free swag, man. Grab the fat loss formula, grab the cardio plan, grab some paid swag, right? Consider full throttle fat loss. That would be pretty awesome. But either way, man, you guys are amazing, and we will see you guys next week.